Welcome in to the Irish NFL show as we look forward to a big weekend ahead of us. The divisional round clashes in the playoffs, arguably one of the greatest and exciting weekends of the season. And we have a special interview, a special guest, first time on the show. Needs no introduction, but I'll give it anyway. Current Everton goalkeeper, played over 250 games in the Premiership, Portsmouth, Stoke, Chelsea, Bournemouth, a stint with AC Milan, was on the wrong end of two Johnny Walters goals 10 years ago when Ireland beat Bosnia to qualify for Euro 2016. Sorry, Asmir, I had to put it in. Welcome to the Irish NFL show, Asmir Begovic.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. What a great introduction. Besides the two Johnny Walters goals, but everything else was fine. So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And before we get into the NFL talk, a huge contingent of Evertonians living in Ireland, and obviously over the course of the last week, the news. It's never good to see a manager relieved of his duties. But obviously, David Moyes has returned to the club. How has the last week been? It's probably for players. It's probably a precarious situation. You don't want to see a manager leave, but obviously a fresh start with a new manager coming in.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week or so. Definitely for sure. I think we've had a bit of a sticky spell of results over the last few weeks, and obviously it's a result business, and the harsh reality is that usually the manager pays the price in football, and it's really the tough side of the game, and it can be very ruthless like that, and that's what's obviously happened here, and it's been changed very quickly. New gaffers come in the last couple of days, taking the last couple of sessions, and getting us ready for a quick turnaround to play Aston Villa tomorrow night. So, I really hope he does the trick. Obviously, he's a great manager, great experience in the Premier League. So, really looking forward to working with him.
And NFL world, obviously, we're going to touch on it there shortly. And you're talking about the coaching carousel. Obviously, we've had numerous different head coaches lose their jobs, and we're going to get into that shortly. But the first thing I always try to ask some new guests to come on is, how does one evolve into an NFL fan? And obviously, all different walks of life in terms of people that have been on our show over the course of the last 4 years. Is there one game or one moment where the NFL kind of struck a chord with you and you realize this is a sport in which I really want to have a vested interest in? It's such a great getaway for a lot of people in their normal life. Come Sunday evening, and obviously we're in a very fortunate situation. We can sit down on a Sunday evening, watch the games, watch Red Zone, and obviously we're right in the heart of the playoffs right now.
So yeah, my love for the NFL started probably about, 20 odd years ago now. While I grew up in Canada, spent my teenage years in Canada, and of course American sports play a big role over there. And I'm a big sports nerd, as I'm sure you know and you can tell. But I got into the NFL right around that time when Tom Brady came on the scene. The magical Super Bowl appearance against the St. Louis Rams at the time, and the hottest show on turf and everything that was going on with that Super Bowl. And that's when I really got hooked on the NFL, and then that's when I became a New England Patriots fan and Tom Brady fan, and I've really ever started following the whole sport and everything from that day on. And my love and my involvement in the game and the NFL has definitely grown, and I absolutely love everything about it. As you rightly say, I think the cool part is that out of all the American sports, really, and the leagues, is that we get to watch it here in decent UK time on a Sunday particularly, and whereas most of the other leagues and games are held in the middle of the night, which makes it difficult to follow. So the NFL is king, and of course with the European games now and getting to watch these teams over here quite regularly, it's grown so much. So I'm a serious NFL follower, fan, and I can't get enough of it.
Are you surprised by the enormity of the game this side of the world? Obviously, you touched on it there. We've had so many years of games in the UK. Initially, Wembley. Now we're locked in with games at Tottenham. There was the Munich games initially. They went to Frankfurt. They've gone back to Munich. There's the Bernabeu is coming next season. It's endless. There's suggested game here potentially being played in Dublin, Ireland, which doesn't seem like it's too far away. Obviously, it's speculation, but it seems like something is in the offing potentially. Commitment from Roger Goodell to expand the sport to various different countries. It just seems like it's only going one trajectory right now, and it's great for fans over this side of the world, because you feel, what you love the sport for a long time, you feel kind of slightly removed from, because unless you're going stateside to watch a game and experience that atmosphere that comes with that. But now it's on your doorstep. You can go to the games, and you touched on, obviously, the coverage is second to none between Game Pass, Sky Sports. I mean, the world is very small now, but does it still feel sometimes you need to take that step back and realize how far we've come so quickly?
It's been an incredible journey, I think, especially the expansion and the way they've grown the game for the NFL has been absolutely incredible. I remember, as you rightly say, going to the London games 10 plus years ago now, and it's gotten even bigger, really. And you never see an empty seat. And the fact of the matter is, the NFL do such a great job. They take it step by step. I think they grow into certain markets a game at a time, a year at a time, and I think get involved in really the right way, and then they see what the demand is like for the games and the whole sport and the whole league, and then they take it from there. And I think if the demand's there, they're going to supply it. That's exactly what they've done. I think so many people have bought into it. I know, and from what I've read, I think the eventual goal is to maybe have an international game every single weekend, which obviously will give even more revenue and money to certain TV partners who might get this early package and everything that goes with that. So, I mean, the NFL have grown so much, the way they are and the way they operate, I think with so much on the line for every game. And I think that's where they got it right. And I think that's probably the biggest similarity when you talk about Premier League maybe to NFL, and maybe the difference with some of the other leagues is that every game is so important. I think the urgency, there's not 40, 50, 60, 80 games in some leagues cases. I think every game is so important, and I think that's what draws the fans in because the players and teams are playing hard every single game.
Well, that's an interesting one. I was going to throw this question out there because it is this continuous speculation that they're going to move towards a Week 18 scenario, and what we've seen over the course of the weekend with the playoffs, reading some articles, listening to some podcasts, that people have been a little bit down on the weekend in terms of the content from a product perspective. That the games were, I wouldn't say they were all blowouts essentially, because some games were in the mix until the third quarter, and certain teams have pulled away. But there's a certain feel over the course of the weekend that it wasn't as compelling as other seasons, probably with the exception of Sunday night and the great Commanders victory. Did you feel that at the weekend that it was very much kind of was going into the games? It was heavy favourites. Sometimes that doesn't always become the norm, but it certainly was this weekend.
Yeah, it was quite a unique weekend, really, and I do get that sentiment. I do get that point, and I think it's really, really important. I'm not a huge fan of the expansion. I think 17, maybe 18 is doable with obviously removing of the preseason games, but it's an incredibly physical sport. There's no getting away from it, and we want to see the best players play. We want to see the best teams play, and it's really stretching all of these teams. I think if you look at just the amount of players that teams are going through these days, I mean the amount of quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, third choice quarterbacks, I think it's really tough for the teams to keep up. So I think there's definitely that move to 18 coming at some point. I think there's no getting away from it. But I think they have to be really careful and find that fine balance of making sure the competitive level stays at the highest level possible without endangering the players and the product too much.
I was going to jump into your Patriots because it's been I would say, a turbulent 12 months. Obviously, Bill Belichick, there was a lot of speculation over the course of last season. I want to bring you back to a period last year where they had this kind of Hall of Fame weekend, and Mike Vrabel was in the stadium. I think it happened to be the Titans bye week, but there was a lot of speculation at that stage. Bill Belichick was going to finally hand over the reins, and it looked like Mike Vrabel was the obvious candidate to take the role. And obviously, they went a different route in terms of employment within the organization, and Jerry Mayo takes over. And over the course of the season, having done numerous podcasts and we speak with the Patriots, there was a sense that he really wasn't managing the players with the expectation which the Kraft family would have had, and he was coming out with some rash statements at press conference. And for me, it was a little bit naivety of stepping into a role for the first time. And obviously, I don't know whether it was because the Jets had interviewed Vrabel very quickly and there was a concern they might lose out on him, but we didn't even get the Black Monday, as they called it, and Mayo was relieved of his duties. And Mike Vrabel obviously is now in situ as the new head coach. How have you made the last year? Because there has been some bright spots. The quarterback looks like he's a fantastic talent, but this roster needs a lot of work over the course of over the coming months, in particular around the draft. And obviously, there's a lot of cap space. It'd be interesting to see how proactive they are come free agency.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think you mentioned a turbulent 12 months. It's probably been a very turbulent 4 years ever since the famous, I guess, parting of ways between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. It's been, really different sort of time. We mentioned and we spoke about my time as a Patriots fan, and it's been glory for a lot of the time. And I think it's been a challenging four last year, especially the last couple. I think if you look at the records, 4-13 in both the last 2 years, it's far from the standard this franchise is used to. I think the the appointment of Mike Rabel is incredibly exciting. I think in my mind, the absolute best coach in Canada available this year. I know he was also available last year after he left the Tennessee Titans. So, what exactly was the view from the Kraft family? I guess nobody quite knows. It almost feels a little bit like one of those years that you throw away, a bit of a reset year, and the fact that they were able to accumulate a lot of cap space now going forward, get a few of the contracts off the books, gave a rookie quarterback the chance to play. It seemed like that to me from the outside, because I don't think there was much other direction going on. But I think it looks like behind the scenes there's definitely been a bit of trouble. I don't think it's been a very happy camp all around the franchise, and I know losing doesn't help. So the Kraft family were quick to make the decision, and again, shown a really good statement of intent here by getting Mike Rabel on board. And I think that's really important. I think he's going to really command a lot of respect. He's a tough guy. He's a tough player, and I think everywhere he's been, and I think he overachieved with the Tennessee Titans for a long time without probably having that star elite quarterback, by having a really good surrounding cast and just a really tough-nosed football team. And I think that's what the Patriots need to be. It's a cold weather city, cold weather environment. You're going to get into November and December and have to play some really tough football. So I think Mike Rabel is going to do that in spades. But I think going forward, absolutely, we seem to have our franchise quarterback in Drake May. I mean, Joe Milton was fantastic as well in his cameo against the Bills in the last week of the regular season, even though he did cost us the #1 pick, which isn't ideal. But we're still drafting in the top 5, and with that cap space, as we've seen before in the NFL, if you use it wisely and get that influx of talent and high-level elite talent, NFL-proven talent with the draft as well coming up, you can make a lot of progress in a very short space of time. So, I think that's what the Patriots are going to be looking to do.
I'm interested to get your thoughts actually on losing that particular game and losing the pick, because only a week removed from my team, the Giants, beating the Colts and essentially taking themselves out of a position to be the first pick in the draft. And as you very well know, a professional footballer, players don't tank, and players will give 100% commitment no matter what the circumstances are. Losing for me for the Patriots felt like a huge opportunity lost, in the sense of, because they have the quarterback, and a huge season for Drake May and various different other quarterbacks that have come out of the draft last year, that they were primed for someone to come up with a huge offer for the first pick, essentially take it away from the Patriots. The Patriots need to backfill players in positions, and there's a huge opportunity, not necessarily to reset, but it would have been so nice to be in a situation similar to what the Panthers were a couple of years ago, where they got a huge amount from the Bears. Were you slightly disappointed? I appreciate they have to go and win the game, and Milton was very impressive, but there's also a part of a fan that says it was 1 week we could have done without winning that particular game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think I've been on record and on numerous NFL shows and places where I've voiced my opinion that if we're going to tank, we might as well tank properly and go all out, because I think getting those #1, #2 picks, you rightly say that they hold a massive amount of value, especially with teams in desperate need of a quarterback who might, maybe not the level to them, as you rightly mentioned, the Panthers and the haul they got from the Bears. And what they gave the Bears, the Panthers, what they gave the Bears. So I think, yeah, it would have been nice to get the #1 pick for sure, because it gives you so many more options, and with the amount of talent that we need, the more picks that we have, the more better picks we have, the better. So yeah, slightly disappointing. It would have been a nice thing to see, I guess, the powers above make that decision, because when the players and the level of players on the field, they're gonna compete. They're gonna compete absolutely, and maybe it would have been nice to have a few scratches from the lineup, from the from the powers above, but it didn't happen. We've got the 4th pick. I don't see anyone really trading up for it, as you rightly said. I don't think it's a deep quarterback draft. So besides the top 2 that obviously very publicized, I don't think people are going to be absolutely falling over themselves to go to #4. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But I think that in return should give us a good player, an impact player, and it'll be interesting to see where the Patriots go with that 4th pick.
Yeah, I didn't foresee myself talking about draft this early, but I will throw one at you, because Deion Sanders yesterday in another very podcast came out and made look. For me, he's very strategic in terms of what he says. I think it's very planned and orchestrated. He knows exactly what he's doing, but he's I won't say he's trying to manipulate the draft already, but he has suggested that there's two teams in particular he doesn't foresee his son playing for. You could speculate and say it's the Titans and the Browns at 1 and 2, but it's very interesting to see because we haven't had it. I read something last week. We're 21 years removed from when Eli Manning to John Elway. John Elway obviously declined the Colts, went to the Broncos. 21 years later, Eli Manning does something similar with the Chargers. We're 21 years on. Is this the Sanders piece now where they try to dictate where their son ends up? I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I'm sure that they want to manipulate the draft. I can totally see that. It's very convenient, of course, that there's this opening with the Dallas Cowboys come up now as well. So I think there's a lot of, and I think what's great for us in the sports fan talk, of course, conspiracy theories and as to what's going to happen. I find it very difficult. I think, for most reports, and I think for all of us NFL fans, I find it very difficult for Shedeur Sanders to go outside the top 2 or 3. How far they can manipulate him to go down, and that's where, as we mentioned earlier, this is where potentially the Patriots could have had so much leverage.
Yeah.
They could have had so much leverage, because there would have been a team or two, that would have potentially, for different reasons, maybe the Cowboys, somebody who would have wanted that number 1 pick, and to use it on Shedeur Sanders. So, yeah, I don't see the Titans. I mean, the Titans might trade it. I mean, you just never know in the NFL. But I think it's difficult these days. There was a lot of talk about Caleb Williams not being happy about going to the Chicago Bears. People talked very openly also about the Washington Commanders being a bad landing spot for some of the young quarterbacks and players coming through. And that's changed a little bit too. So, I think these days it's very difficult to make yourself drop and manipulate the draft to get yourself to fall down.
Potentially the Giants at number 3. Who knows? We touched on the Cowboys there, so that running right. It brings me to the breaking news yesterday evening, of which Mike McCarthy has stepped away from the Cowboys as head coach, and we did our own podcast last night, and I suggested it was a kind of a situation which we're both happy with and comfortable with, because I don't think Jerry Jones wanted to be seen as another owner to be sacking a head coach, and I don't think Mike McCarthy wanted to have a sacked situation on his CV. So I wonder, did both parties kind of, sit there, not necessarily have conversations about it, but it suited both parties to move on? I think McCarthy very quickly will be picked up, already seen. He's scheduled to interview for the Bears on Thursday. The Saints are looking to interview him next Monday. They look like the 2 leading candidates, and Jerry Jones maybe will get Sanders, but for me, maybe Kellen Moore is the obvious candidate. He's obviously the offensive coordinator with the Eagles. They're deep in the playoffs for the divisional round this weekend, but he looks like the likely candidate. Did it strike you as something that was in the offing? Like, people were quite surprised by this yesterday. I thought it was inevitable, having seen over the course of the last few weeks that no contract conversations were taking place.
Yeah, it seemed to be one that people really had their finger on. I think even when you look back to the last offseason, I think letting a coach go into the last year of their deal is very uncommon. I think, so it's not a huge surprise that Mike McCarthy has left the Cowboys. I think, for himself, I think he's done a great job over there. Maybe, of course, never won a Super Bowl or really gone that deep into the playoffs. But I think what he's had to work with, and the challenges that you have by coaching the Dallas Cowboys, I think Mike McCarthy's done a fantastic job, and rightly so. Should be right on the top of most people's list. So I need to see what happens. I'm very curious to see what happens. Again, from track record, Jerry is not going to get that rock star. That's the only reason why Deion Sanders feels a little bit far-fetched. He doesn't like anyone outshining him. Jerry Jones really needs to be the star of the show, which then points a little bit more down the Kellen Moore, maybe Joe Brady type of personality. Even Ben Johnson, again, I think would be a great hire, but I don't see Jerry doing that. I think he went quite safe with Mike McCarthy before, had the opportunity to get the likes of a Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, and hire him, and this hasn't happened. So if that hasn't happened, I'm not sure why it would happen now. I mean, I would absolutely love to see it. I mean, I think Deion Sanders with the Dallas Cowboys would be absolute popcorn Hollywood material. But I really find it difficult to believe that's going to happen. I think it should happen. I would love to see it happen. But I think, knowing Jerry Jones, he's going to go for the more safe, unassuming option that doesn't steal any of the limelight from him.
Some Cowboys fans have suggested he's not as ruthless as he used to be. I don't know if it's an age thing. It's probably similar just to what I see with the Giants with John Mara. They're not the way they used to be. They're not as well as quick to hit the panic button each year. And he's kind of evolved over the course of the last 10 years. And 10 years ago, this conversation wouldn't be happening because either the contract's on a long-term contract or he was gone after that Packers loss in the playoffs last year. He's kind of changed his tune. I wonder, like, does he still have the desire and aspirations to go and win a Super Bowl? That's a question mark that keeps coming up continuously from Cowboys fans. They don't get the sense that he really is that desire that he may have had 10, 15 years ago. I reflect on that Giants beating the Cowboys in divisional rounds years ago, and the look of disgust on the sideline. He left the championship tickets in the locker room for every player, and then the Giants obviously got wind of this and motivated them even further to go and beat them. We don't see that Jerry Jones anymore. Is it an age thing, or is it just the evolution of where this organization is?
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. I think those are all incredibly fair comments and opinions. That you can only judge the Cowboys and Jerry Jones by his decisions and the way he's doing business, and I don't think he's definitely as ruthless. Again, I find it incredibly bizarre because I think when I look back at the Cowboys, the Jerry Jones heyday, the Super Bowls, you're looking at the likes of Bill Parcells, you're looking at the likes of Jimmy Johnson, those sort of big coaches, big personalities, ones you can't really control. Which again, as you rightly said, last year that loss, I felt like that was game over for Mike McCarthy and a lot of people within the Cowboys organization. And after that loss, you would have loved to see Jerry Jones make that decision, go get Bill Belichick. That's what he would have done in the past. That's what exactly that franchise deserves and wants to be the best. It's America's team. Again, even just, I think, in my opinion, with the way they have drafted, with some of the player personnel decisions, I mean, it's not a Super Bowl roster. It's not a Super Bowl team. The way they're operating is definitely not on Super Bowl level, especially now when you look at some of these elite teams. So I think it's definitely a fair opinion by these Dallas Cowboy fans, and they should be frustrated and rightly so.
Trying to look ahead to this weekend, as touched on at the early start of the show, it's probably one weekend in which, whilst we're getting to that stage of the season where we acknowledge we're nearly at the end of the road, unfortunately, when it comes to a great NFL season, but there's huge excitement, obviously, for a fan bases going into this weekend. Which particular game of the four is the one that's the most enticing for you? Is it the Commanders having come off that big win on Sunday, and what can they do against this Lions team that are so stacked, or the Ravens Bills on Sunday night, which is a huge game, fantastic game to look forward to as well?
Yeah, I think we've got four really great games to look forward to. I think should all be really exciting. I don't think you see any potential blowouts, but of course, when you never know what's going to happen. I think four great games to look forward to. I think the standout game has to be the Baltimore Ravens traveling to the Buffalo Bills. So many intriguing parts of that matchup. I think two of the hottest teams, maybe the two hottest teams in the NFL going at it. The Buffalo Bills unbeaten at home this year, and John Harbaugh having the best road record in the playoffs out of any coach around. So I think it's got the ingredients to be an incredible matchup. Obviously, it's going to be cold. I think the Bills Mafia is going to be on absolute fire. So I think they're going to make it for a great atmosphere. And you mentioned it earlier. I mean, the team I've kind of put all my eggs in this basket this year. Beginning of the season, I was all in on the Detroit Lions. I really love what they're all about and how they go about their business. I think Jaden Daniels for me was a standout performer in this past playoff round. So for him to go there in such a difficult environment is going to be great to see, and I think awesome for his development. So some absolutely intriguing matchups to look forward to.
I had an NFL fan said to me the other day, the Chiefs are winning the Super Bowl. We just haven't realized it yet because the similarities of the past couple of years are so much there in terms of last year. They were struggling in the regular season. They were getting over the line in games, but they weren't winning convincingly. They weren't covering any spreads. They had wide receivers that were dropping the ball numerous times, and Kadarius Toney and all these various different players, but yet they all came up trumps in the playoffs. And I wouldn't say it's been at the same level this year, but certainly haven't played at 11. I would acknowledge it as they've kind of evolved into a team that's more reliant on the defense, and Steve Spagnuolo does a fantastic job, and he's in the line for interviews with the Jags and with the Raiders, but I think it'd be a bad move for him to move away. I think he's the best defensive coordinator in the league. I think the Chiefs would recognize he is. He He schemes fantastic no matter what the circumstances are. And this team right now are 2 games away from being in the Super Bowl. Very little talk of them again because they're 25 days off. And yet they're 2 home games potentially away from being in the Super Bowl. Are we on the crest of, I know you probably don't want as a Patriots fan to say that this is the start of this, significant time where Mahomes could be catching up with rings on Tom Brady, but it just has that feel about it. It's like, Groundhog Day. The Bills and Ravens will knock each other off on Sunday. The Chiefs will win on Saturday night. They'll have an extra day's rest. And here we go again. The Chiefs are on the way to the Super Bowl. Do you buy into that conversation?
I can't be against it. Let's put it that way. I think it's tough to deny. I think it's been done too many times before, especially in recent years of what the Chiefs have done, and they're definitely turning into that sort of Patriots-esque dynasty. There's no doubt about it. I think they're such a complete team, and we talk about the complete opposite with the Cowboys just a couple of minutes earlier to the Chiefs. They're built to win. They're a complete team. You don't see any drastic big holes in that roster, in that team. And of course, yes, you have Patrick Mahomes who can make things happen at any time. And again, super efficient, super effective with how they play. Get themselves in his number 1 seed once again, where it gives them home field advantage. I mean, we all know how difficult it is for teams to go to Arrowhead and win the playoffs. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is almost unbeatable there. So, it's going to be really tough. And again, the matchup suits them. I think you look at the Texans in the first game of the playoffs last weekend, played a team in the Chargers who probably, again, a little bit overachieved and ran out of gas and couldn't quite do it anymore. And I feel like the Texans are that team as well now. They're pushing themselves, getting to this stage, almost like they're running out of gas again a little bit. Ever since the injury with Tank Dell, that hasn't helped. So I think, again, they're in a position where you see it being another win for the Chiefs. Maybe not a complete blowout, comfortable win, but it's going to be competitive. But you see the Chiefs winning again, so that position for them is great. Again, I think they're playing on a Saturday with plenty of rest, while the Bills and Ravens are going to knock the absolute heck out of each other on Sunday night. So, again, it's a great road. They've put themselves. They've earned this position, but it's going to be difficult to bet against the Chiefs. There's no doubt about that.
A sneaky good storyline that was said to me today was Matthew Stafford finds a way to win in Philadelphia on Sunday, and he goes back into Detroit for the 3rd time since he's left there. Obviously, he lost in the playoffs last year. He lost week 1 on Sunday Night Football. 2 games which the Rams were very close in both scenarios, and unfortunately didn't get over the line. But sometimes the 3rd time is the right time. Do you see a scenario where they can go into Philadelphia? It seems to me like a really tough task for them to be coming off a Monday night game, traveling East Coast, and being able to put a stellar performance in against an Eagles team that are so battle tested. Didn't play at the level in which we've seen over the course of the season, but still had more than enough to get over the Packers on Sunday. What's your thoughts on this one on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tough. It's a short week for the Rams. I think, of course, a lot of the emotional turmoil, which is going on with the devastating fires in Los Angeles. And, I think they used it to their advantage against the Vikings, of course. I think they were playing like a team possessed and with a lot of emotional power behind them. Whether they can do that again, I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be really tough. I think the Philadelphia Eagles, they know how to play in these situations. They're built for the playoffs. Again, a very, very physical team who, as you rightly said, I think beat the Packers quite comfortably without being anywhere close to their A game. So I see this as a very difficult task for the Rams. Stafford in cold weather isn't particularly the best again. So I think, again, when you look at how stacked the Eagles are with that running attack of Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts has been playing okay. I think he's going to feel probably a little bit better after his concussion break. So when you look at, again, Dallas Goedert being their sort of fourth, fifth option in offense, it's quite incredible the amount of firepower they have, and of course a very strong offensive line. So it's really difficult to see past the Eagles. And again, for them to win, being at home in that environment, Philadelphia is going to be, again, on their feet, incredible atmosphere. So I think it's going to be, again, just that probably tasks too far and a step too far for the Rams.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat now, Asmir. The Irish NFL show will be in New Orleans again for another Super Bowl in a couple of weeks' time.
Can I come with you? I'll come with you?
Yeah, we're doing quite well. This will be our 4th year in a row to be media accredited, so we can't complain too much. But Which two teams are we going to be looking at? What's your inner belief at this stage? I know you touched on the Lions being all in. Where are they? Who's going to face them from the AFC? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think my thoughts. I've done my bracket, which I've shared on socials, and I'm not going to go away. I'm gonna stick to that bandwagon. I'm going to go with the Lions being in the Super Bowl. I think that win against the Vikings was so big for them on many different levels. Just another test for them to overcome and get that rest. And I think they're going to get maybe a couple guys back. David Montgomery coming back, which is, I think, incredibly big for them. So that makes them even more complete in that environment. Detroit playoff games at home. Those fans, I mean, they're going to be that absolute extra man for them. So I think they'll get to the Super Bowl, which will be absolutely amazing. And I would just love to see them play the Bills. I mean, I think for you going over there for two fan bases that you would love to see play against each other, I think Bills Mafia and the Lions fans are going to be that's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere in New Orleans. So I'm going to go with that. I really do think Josh Allen's playing like a man possessed. I think probably with the most complete and deep supporting cast that he's ever had. Joe Brady doing a great job with that offense. So I do think it's going to be those two. I mean, that's what I'm hopeful for. I really, again, I'm not saying on the AFC side, not saying it with a huge amount of confidence because I really, like I said, I find it really tough to bet against the Chiefs. But I think the way Josh Allen, my MVP, in my opinion, is playing this year, I think he's ready to get the Bills finally over that hump and into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no disrespect to Texans fans, but if we do get the Ravens, the Bills, or the Chiefs, I think we're in for a stellar Super Bowl. And you touched on your prediction. If it is your prediction, 90 points score between these two teams the last time in which they played during the regular season. We're only a few weeks removed from that particular game. If we were to get a Super Bowl like that, it would be fantastic. Asmir, you've been very generous with your time in coming on the Irish NFL show. I know you've got a busy period, a match tomorrow evening, preparation for that as well. So we're really appreciative of your time. And obviously, I hope you look forward to the action over the course of the weekend and the remaining games within the season. But for now, thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure. As a Patriots fan, always a great time to be on here. Even though I'm wearing a Yankees t-shirt, I've got a very, very random collection of favorite sports teams. So yeah, can't wait for the rest of the playoffs, the coaching carousel. But thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, we didn't even get into Yankees Mets because I'm a Mets fan, but we'll leave it there. We'll save that for the next time in which you come on the Irish NFL. Thanks, Asmir.